Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased. Joining me from the west coast of the US, Bala Muthiah. He's Director of Engineering in Silicon Valley. We're going to discuss today, as you might guess from Bala's title, Director of Engineering. So we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about, the move that Bala did, into leadership role. We're going to talk about how AI is amplifying also this today and his points of view on this topic, mentorship, and everything and anything, related, of course, as we discussed always, to tech and startups. Bala, without further ado, thank you very much for joining the show today. I really appreciate that. Just, quickly, maybe a little bit about your background, and then, we can start the discussion from there. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me. It's really great to be here and appreciate the time. A little bit about me, huh? As you mentioned, I am here in the Silicon Valley. I'm working as a director of engineering here at a company, but my roots started back in India. So I started working straight out of college as an engineer and was there for a few years. In 2009 is when I moved to United States, to the Bay Area, pretty much in the same area since at that time, like almost 17 plus years now. And this is the time where I transitioned also like around 10 years ago from being an engineer to an engineering leader. So right now I'm leading teams, and then I'm also working with different startups on helping the founders. This is predominantly pro bono, advising them, and also doing what I can to give back, because I came here, I am here where I am because of the people who gave to me. So I want to do the same. So that's me.
Great, and thank you again, Bala, for being here with me today, and I appreciate the time, for sharing also your experience that I'm sure everyone will benefit out of it who is working in tech. So the first thing, I will ask you, like, you moved from, I would say, an output focused engineer to people first leader. What triggered that shift? Like, what led you to choose this path? I would say, and how this changed the way you operate day to day.
Yeah, the what made this change is a little bit unconventional, I would say. So this was somewhere around 10 plus years ago. So I went to a school. This is all I was in as an engineer. So as part of the corporate social responsibility initiatives at work, this was my previous job. We went to a school, like a public school in US. So for context for international audience, so public school in US is funded by the government, but the range, the quality of the education depends upon which neighborhood your school is. If you're in a well invested neighborhood, the public school will be really good, right? If you are in a neighborhood which is underinvested, like the population economy is like the income is lower, it's not going to be heavily invested because most of these are driven by tax money. So if you're in a good neighborhood which has expensive houses, higher taxes, better schools. If you're in a neighborhood which is not very invested in, lower taxes, low funding goes to public school. So I went to one of these schools to volunteer. Right, this is to go paint the schools. Like usually companies go and do this. When I went there, I had a chance to talk to the principal, and they talked about, I would love to have someone come and teach computer science as a one-off thing to the kids. This is an elementary school, right? Grade 3, 4, and 5. So I started doing that. Like I do Wednesday and Friday mornings, so from 7:30, from 8 to 9:30 ish, like just an hour and a half, three classes. So this is, I would say, the moment that changed my life. This is 2015 ish time. Seeing those kids grow, seeing those kids learn and then develop, that really gave me the sense, I want to do this for a living. And being in tech, being an engineer at that point gave me that transition. Oh, being a manager is very similar. You invest in people, you grow people, and there is a great sense of satisfaction and gratification. So that was my pivot and switch to leadership.
Nice story and very touching, I would say, Bala. Now, um, we know that sometimes we have strong engineers. Like when we say strong engineers, they are like really they know what they're doing. They are very well versed, and part of any career path, like for anyone in any domain, they aim for becoming leaders, right? And of
Mm.
course, building the next generation of people who can be doing the same thing. But we hear it sometimes. It's not a path for everyone, and sometimes people insist of going to that path, and we see them kind of doing some mistakes, I would say. So from your experience, and because you've watched this space for a long time, what are like some of the biggest mistakes you saw engineers make when they step into leadership roles?
Oh, this is very, very true, right? Like you mentioned about strong engineers. I think this pretty much anyone who is going through or going to have, right? Like I wouldn't claim myself as a strong engineer back in the days, but when I transitioned, I made those mistakes too. Like even anybody, like strong or not, this is going to be a common pattern because this is part of learning. There is no school you go to become a leader, right? Because you see, you do it in the job, you get hands-on practice, and then you switch. So one of the things which I have done as a mistake or like something that probably not a right way to do things, which I see some people tend to do a lot today, is when you come from an engineering background, you are always about problem solving. Like, when you see something is wrong, when you see something is not going in the right direction, you have this urge to fold your sleeves and step in and solve those problems. That's what an engineer is: debug, break, solve problems. And when you become a manager, when your team is going through a problem, the first instinct is to jump into it and roll your sleeves and help them fix. So this is something we call as like a rescue thing, right? Like you jump in, you want to go rescue because you see your team is now going through a tough time. This was one of the things I did early in the days, and this is actually an anti-pattern because you are in a way robbing the opportunity from your team to learn. You are getting the things that they would have done otherwise. Yes, you stepping in will definitely help. You can accelerate the solution. However, you are taking the opportunity from them to learn. So that was one of the biggest things I do. And similarly, like then you learn a couple times and then you tweak. But the biggest one I would say is getting into the rescue mode and jumping in too early before your team actually needs you.
Great. Now things are changing fast, but as we know, because of AI, right? So it's disrupting, you know, verticals. It's disrupting even the way we do our jobs. When it comes to leadership, especially in engineering, of course. Um, when I was preparing, I saw like you mentioned you frame AI as leadership amplifier, not just as
Mhm.
an automation tool. In real life, in a real engineering organization, how would that look like on a high level? And then we can maybe dive into some of the details.
Yeah, totally, totally. I've seen this. Of course, AI, as you mentioned, is rapidly evolving, right? I jokingly say that whenever we go on shows or talks, by the time you start the show and end the show, already something else would have happened in the world of AI. It is
Right.
happening so fast. So why I say this as an amplifier, or I see this is because things are happening so fast. We are able to solve problems so fast. So that means there's a good positive thing, which is, hey, I'm able to get to a problem faster than I could ever before. Also, it's going to amplify and all the flaws and gaps in your system, right? Think of it like a lens, right? Like a zoom lens. It is going to show everything big. Like you can do things faster, you can do bigger things, but it is also going to open up and show your flaws. If you have a small crack, then you accelerate, it's going to become a big crack. So this is where leaders have to be very, very intentional and very deeply curious to understand what are the existing gaps in the system, flaws in the system, the cracks that when you start building and accelerating is going to break. So it is a great amplifier because you can do a lot more things very, very quickly. That comes with the cost of those inefficiencies that you have, the dysfunctions you have is also going to accelerate, meaning it's going to also break faster. So this is where you as a leader make a huge difference.
Right. Now, let's break it down a little bit more to the audience, Bala. So we know, when we talk about AI and, the way it can empower us as, knowledge workers, as they call us, right? So
Mhm.
automating tasks, and sometimes even getting some insights. So where have you seen AI actually improve leadership decisions rather than just productivity? Because productivity, I think
Yes.
everyone knows now that AI, yeah, can create your Excel sheets. It can go and do your repetitive task. It can do triage for your emails in the morning. It gives you the so we know all this. But when it comes to decision, because majority of the time when I ask, whether VP of engineering or CTOs or especially in tech. So this is majority of the time they tell me they spend it in decision making, not in actually like productivity kind of thing, because this is for the team, it's not for them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
can you give us examples like where AI actually can improve the decisions for leaders in technology?
Yeah, no, totally. Like decision making is probably the most important thing a leader brings to the table. And how good your decisions are is going to change the fate of the company, of your team, of your organization, anything. So with AI, there are there's one thing that has made the world, I would say, easier in a way, tougher too, which is access to data. Right before, when I say data, I'm not talking about raw information. I'm talking about you are a company, you are trying to build something, sending it to your customer. You can send it like do it so quickly in a very rapid fashion that you can immediately start getting customer feedback. Back in the day, what would take, let's say, a month or 2 months to ship a product to a customer, for them to get used to it and then give feedback, and then you use that to improvise how you develop or improve your product. That cycle has shortened now. So you can quickly experiment something, rapidly go find out what's happening, and then you can take decisions. So for a leader, this is, I would say, one of the best times to be, because you can know what someone is thinking about your product very, very soon, which was not the case back in the days. So that is a differentiator. So when you have access to such a quick, short feedback loop, what can you do as a leader to improve your product? Going to be a big differentiator. So access to data before, if you as a leader want to know how your business health is performing, want to know something specific, you have to ask your team, and they have to go build dashboards, and they have to get it all. Now it's all readily accessible to you in a chat interface, right? You can just type in a question and it's going to get you the data you want. Then you can quickly act. You can quickly perform what you have to perform that is important to the business. So access to data, the speed at which you can get insights, that's the differentiator for decision making in the new world.
Right. So part of the decisions, if we want to little bit kind of go more deep, is dealing with conflicts, right? And maybe
Yes.
sometimes uh, you know searching for growth opportunities, right? So is there also a practicality for AI to help leaders in these two aspects as well? Because I know you have a point of view on that, Bala.
Yes, yes, definitely. Actually, this is more, again, um, we are in the early phases of AI, so we are learning a lot about AI, right? Nobody can really predict fully, oh, what is and how it is going to happen. The best thing to do is just be curious and try it out. So the opportunities, right? Before, we talked about productivity a little bit. You mentioned about productivity. That's like the foundation. Most of the companies are talking about how it will improve productivity. So what happens? Gaining productivity is not the biggest thing, right? It's what comes after the productivity. For example, let's say a task is taking 10 hours, right? Or for a team, let's say taking 10 weeks to build something. Now with AI, let's say you can build it in 3 weeks, right? So that's, you can do it in 30% of the time compared to before. So now one of the common pitfall is, hey, now I have 7 more weeks. I'm going to go do 3 more things, right? Or, oh, I'm going to sit and do nothing. That's another anti pattern. Or, oh,
Right.
I can now do it in 3 weeks. I don't need that many people. I don't need that big a team. So I'm just going to shrink. So those are all anti patterns. What you should do is go after bigger problems. We are always constrained by our resources, right? The problems we go after, like even a small company, big company, businesses, anything, you go based on the resources you have. Now that has expanded, that has grown. So for a leader, now growth is more expansive. I use the word expansive instead of growth necessarily, because when we say growth, we always think about vertical, right? We think
Hmm.
growth is like increasing something that you have. Expansive is like going wide. So that is an ability that AI is going to give to leaders, and it's up to a leader to use it and choose it to use it wisely, right? The expansiveness, that is going to be the accelerator. and that will make or break a business in the new world.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Like this is what it will make it or break it. Now, there is nothing, but as we know, that comes without risks, right? So, what are like some of the risks of adopting actually the AI without, maybe looking back at their maybe leadership style? And I'm asking you this question because like this is the same thing when, and I'm sure you saw the hype in Silicon Valley, and people saw it like everywhere else. Like everyone want to adopt AI regardless the function, and we find out that actually you need first to do some pre-work before you can make the AI work for you. So when we take and this is just having your processes like documented, having your data ready, and all this. When it comes to leadership, like what are like the prerequisites, I would say, that a leader has to have before they can adopt AI without having the risks that comes with the AI?
Yes, true. Like these transitions have happened a lot before, but this time it's much more, I would say, exponential. Like things are going really fast. So the first thing to do, we talked about earlier, right? It's we have to unlearn some of the practices because AI is going to amplify everything. So if you have a productive system, it let us say it's going to make it 10x. So if you have a flawed system, it is also going to make it 10x. Everything is going to amplify. So back in the time, let's say you have a certain behavior as a leader. Let's say someone is micromanaging, right? That's a
Hmm.
common pattern leaders fall into.
Right.
With AI, that's going to amplify because now you're going to be more invasive. You're going to have access to data a lot. So you tend to lean more into micromanagement because now you can look at every nuance of what's happening in a team, and you would have the urge to go solve it out of goodwill, right? You want to go solve it. So that's an anti pattern to think about. So if you don't drop those, this is purely from a leadership perspective. If you don't go do that, if you are carrying your whole old self to the new world, it will break. So drop the things that was a minor thing before, was a not good thing as a leader. Remember that is going to get amplified. So be intentionally reflecting on you. Do a retrospect before you start this new leadership journey with AI, and then drop those pieces. It's not going to help. It's going to hurt more. Back in the day, maybe it was okay to have that slight unaccepted behavior because you are good at other things. But now that's going to amplify. So it might completely change the formula of the equation.
Absolutely, because the AI, it's like a very good imitator of what we do. So, and that on steroids. Like if we are
Yes.
micromanagers, we become micromanagers on steroids, and team would hate it, of course, 100%. Like it's a nice example you gave. Now, let's say when you're dealing with a team, I would say like and of course they would be empowered also to use AI, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's your take, Bala, on also encouraging a team to judge on the AI outputs? And I'm asking this whether it's like code generated by AI, should they take it, or they should like again think about it and okay, let's have a real review on that, or maybe sometime and we've seen like some example that came out in the news where people completely gave it the AI, they
Yes.
dropped the ball kind of. So, and I've also spoken with people like who are also like head of engineering, CTOs, and they tell me like they have these kinds of human guardrails when coming to take decisions. So we don't 100%. Now, where does the human judgment still, in your opinion, outperform AI today?
Yeah. This is going to be the critical differentiator, right? Between winners and who are not making it. So, human in the loop or human decision making is still going to be critical, right? Yes, the rate at which we are going to do is changing rapidly, all those things. But having the human is going to be key. I'll tell you this where if you first is as a leader working with the team to figure out what are the tasks that are okay to l- use AI for, what are the tasks that would definitely not use AI for, right? You need to have this principle or a protocol. As a company, depends upon the business, depends upon the culture, depends upon what kind of data you're dealing with. You need to have a playbook. It is almost like a compliance playbook where certain areas you do not let AI at all, certain areas you let AI but with full control, and certain areas you can let it go on its own. For example, documentation, internal documentation, completely let it go. It's okay if it messes up. You can do dealing with data, dealing with access that are critical and sensitive and privacy, identity things. Do not let it near. If you let it near, have very very strict tight guardrails, right? So those principles based on the business one can come up with. And another thing which often people don't think about, this has nothing to do with data or a company, it's with people, which is I think of our work we do in, we can classify that into two, but like two axes. Like if you take any tasks we do, you can think about like easy and hard, and then you can think about fun and boring, right? If you put it into these four categories, the easy and boring things, that give it to AI. Like it's easy, it's boring. Why do you want to do? AI can do it pretty well, right? Documentation, gathering information, summarizing stuff like that. And you can go into all the four different types. The hard and fun part, I would say keep that. Do not give that to AI, because that's where your team is going to thrive, learn, and grow. Your team is there, an engineer is there, or any role. They want to solve fun problems. They want to solve hard problems. So the hard and fun ones, save it for them. Just because AI can do, just don't give it. This is nothing to do with compliance or anything, but this is how you make your team excited, make your team happy, and stay relevant and continue as an expert in your team, because that's going to be needed. We talk about own agents fully running company, but that's in the future. We don't even know where they are. Of course models are getting better, we are getting higher quality input, but we are not there yet. Don't let it run on its own. Like have a proper, it's evolving. AI is evolving. It's coming from, like I would say, an infant to a toddler. Maybe now it's getting into a teenager phase. So as a parent, if you think, kind of understand how it is and how much control you would give. So assume the same and give that autonomy, but have some control.
Yeah, of course, the controls has to stay there for sure. And yeah, it's good you mentioned these high sensitive examples, like for example, anything with regulations and so where you keep in control. Now, as a leader, but of course, part of the things that you do is mentoring. Um, your team, and maybe even maybe you volunteer to mentor people outside as well, in real life. So you mentioned, of course, I'm going to my notes that before I was preparing, so I saw like you said AI is democratizing mentorship, right? um, so is that where anyone can, because just I can go to Chat GPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever model and I can chat with it? Or is it because, you know, I can, of course, it's you who gonna do it, or Bala can go and put his knowledge, his experience in kind of what people call it MD file skills, and then you create an avatar of Bala, and then at any time, me, I can go and talk to a digital version maybe of Bala, or how does it look in real life? And I'm asking you this, Bala, because we know still till now, of course, as you said, like we are in the teenage phase maybe now of the
Mhm.
AI. We know like that we have a lot of issues with AI outcomes or outputs, I would say. For example, bias. Sometimes it's still hallucination. We didn't solve. We crossed like long way. I'm sure of that. I can see it. But still, we have these um, kind of hiccups here and there. So when it comes to mentorship, how does it look like with the current status? Of course, I don't know if by the time we release the episode, which is usually after 2 weeks from recording. And for the transparency with my audience, I tell them usually when I recorded it. So we are recording on the 24th of March. So I don't know if by 1st of April we're gonna have something major, but with the current with as per the time of this recording, Vala, how the your point of view of the AI democratizing the mentorship looks like in
Yes.
practice.
No, this is something I've been, like you said, like mentorship is a big part of my life personally. As I mentioned earlier, I am where I am because of my mentors. I am standing on their shoulders now. And I see AI is really enabling everybody now in a better way. So you asked two options, right? Like the first one is more, oh, is it something that a person can now interact with an LLM and get mentored? Right? That's one. Or are we creating a model or of our own agent or of our own clone that somebody could go and be a mentee and that can mentor? I see the third one, which is both of these humans, right? The mentor and the mentee are still going to be in the equation. It is just AI is going to help them assist in this conversation better. Because today, a mentorship is very one on one and very relational, right? You don't want to make one part of that synthetic. If I am talking to an LLM mentor, it's going to be synthetic. Yeah, it's going to give me all the pleasing answers I want. It's going to say my ideas are great, that I'm doing phenomenal, but it is going to get me into a delusion, right? Only a real human can understand, unpack, hey, what's happening, because there's emotions involved in mentoring. Nobody goes to a mentor purely from a skill based thing. If you're going, then you can always Google that specific skill, or you can read a book. You go to a mentor for real life experience that cannot be synthetically created. So, what I mean by AI is democratizing is now instead of two people in a mentoring relationship, you are adding a third entity, which is AI. So that is gonna actually monitor, observe how the conversations are. It's gonna help both the mentor and the mentee to be a better version of themselves. So I've seen this when I mentor people, like some of the questions that I get asked, and then I respond right on the fly. It's not that I have time to go prepare. And that's why mentors, as you get more experience, you're going to be more valuable to your mentee because you might have seen things. But there are things I might not know. This is where, based on the conversations and based on how the questions are, like it's going to help and assist me. Same way with the mentee, right? They can get different perspectives on top of what I'm providing. So I would say this is like a coach helping us, both mentor and a mentee, and accelerating both of us for the better. And then eventually it'll build more context and then it'll make our whole journey more successful. Today, a mentor and mentee, there is no third person. So it's hard to know if it's going well or not. It's hard to raise the bar, right? Because it becomes personal. This is where these tools will help. And of course, opening into access, right? What you had to now wait for an expert is no longer needed. You can quickly check with something. Those little things, like you said, the option, like the first version where you can still engage, but I wouldn't rely
Mhm.
it as a mentor, right? So that's going to be a tricky one. Maybe another part we didn't talk is maybe you can treat a AI as a mentee and you can start teaching. Maybe you can get better at that.
Mm.
Right? You can like do a mock mentoring session and ask it to act really naive and ask questions, or you really hone your skills. But I see it as a third person in the room who's going to add value to the both to both individuals.
One thing I noticed, just as a quick follow up on this, is because you said like we can teach AI, and I think what AI is becoming good at is training actually. Um, because when I'm asking, for example, to explain to me, and this famous prompt, like explain to me as if I am,
Right. Hmm.
you know, beginner or okay, explain it in layman terms or whatever. The models are coming really, really good in this. And you
Yes.
know what I'm thinking? So maybe the onboarding process, and I'm sure at engineering departments
Yeah.
the same thing happen. So maybe the AI can take part of this as the tone and voice, quote unquote, of Bala. Let's say this is your way, and then give it to them. So probably there are like kind of things that you can, as you mentioned, like it's not like a fully 100%. Yeah, you go and you give it your character and it
Hmm.
does the things by itself, but it comes kind of a supervised journey also as well too. So you give feedback and then you teach it to become a better mentor next time. So it's a little bit philosophical, I know, but this is my own point of view on this.
True, true. No,
uh,
very true. People are getting very creative about how they use, right? They're running simulations. Oh, this is how famously now we are seeing in the news that, oh, Mark Zuckerberg is creating his own. clone or like a AI CEO to help him with day to day. So people are running predictions, right? Like, oh, this is how I'm thinking. What will my leader respond to? This is a
Right.
document. I would like my leader's perspective. These are their historic previous comments. So it's gonna get you enough comments that you can pre-address before you actually go to the leader, right? So I
Right.
think this is like a step n-1 before you go to the final step. So you will go with much more better version to the final approver or reviewer.
Right. But we didn't discuss much, and I don't have, a lot of questions there. But just out of curiosity, when it comes to day-to-day operations, so one of the things we hear about, especially in engineering departments, is the high performance, but sometimes would come out with the burnout, the fatigue, and
Yes.
everything in between. So, and of course, this is something there is no escape, especially if you are in if you're working with a company in a, I would call it in. Um, High growth phase where everything needs to be finished fast, and you have like very strict deadlines. And usually, like, engineering in general, and being in this environment is not an easy thing. Now, when it comes to AI, are you seeing like it's helping also, to keep this high cadence of performance, lowering burnout, or actually it's making it worse? Like, what's your view on this?
Yeah. This is again still early. Like it depends upon how it is being used by the people, right? So it's going to come to the person who's deploying these and using these techniques or tools. And in a way, I don't see it is actually helping in that kind of way, right? Meaning, because we are all excited. We all want, there are two types of burnouts, right? One is, hey, I can do a task faster. Now I'm going to go do more tasks. So that's going to burn me out.
Right.
So that's one of the things, right? But even before even we go there, the phase where most of us are in today is there is so much happening in the world of AI, in the world of technology. We all try to stay on top of it. We want to
True.
go and know everything new that is coming up. Oh, there's a new model I want to experiment it. There's a new app I want to experiment it. Oh, there's a new paper that has come out. I'm going to go read that. Or there's a new skill. I want to go get that. And this is actually causing a lot of burnout because you are constantly in this chase where, oh, I need to exhaustively know everything. That's never going to be the case. I have done this before too. Like couple months ago, I was in this cycle where I was, oh, I want to be on top of everything. I want to know everything. I'm going to try everything. And then I burnt out. I gave up because it's never going to be possible at the rate it's coming out. It's like drinking out of fire hose, right? You cannot do that. So first is stop. That itself will give you a mental clarity, right? So that's the first burnout I want to caution people, which is very evident in people I talk to. Either they are burnt out because of, oh my God, so much is happening, it's overwhelming, or they are burnt out because, oh, I'm giving everything I can, but it's still, I feel irrelevant. I feel I'm not up to the game. I feel everyone is ahead of me because all you see in the news and media and social network and like things is, oh, I built an app in one day. I built an
Yeah.
app in half an hour. So you start questioning and you burn yourself out. The other burnout you talked about, oh, I can do a task in 2 hours now, which was taking 10 hours. Some teams go into the zone of, I'm going to take 5 tasks and do. So that is a burnout because the decision making has not changed, right? You are still in the loop. Yes, a project, only the execution part, the rate at which you can code, that has shrunk. Nothing else. You talking with somebody in a different team, validating something, getting requirements, getting to a customer, those things are not changing. So they are still there. So if you try to do 5 projects, it's going to burn you out. The best thing is to go after bigger problems. So your life cycle doesn't change. You are still doing the same, but you are just going deeper. A simple example is with AI, you can either go, I would say, like a mile wide and an inch deep, or you can go inch wide and mile deep. So go inch wide, mile deep. So go deeper in a problem. So you solve bigger problems, not more number of problems. That is a way to avoid burnout. Otherwise, we will be like, I have personally felt this so many days. Like I wouldn't say I have found a way to come out of it, but I'm slowly getting out of that burnout zone, acknowledging that, oh, I cannot stay on top of everything all the single time. And yes, I'm going to feel left out. I'm going to feel really dumb because new things are coming up. Like that is the learning exercise, right?
100%. And of course, like, I have technical background, so by default, my brain, whenever I see something new, I would say, yeah, I want to go and try this out. Because, of course, I want also to be on top of everything, whether if I'm, doing my outside of the podcast things, or whether
Mm-hmm.
if I'm preparing for to talk to someone on the podcast. So I need to be, at least up to date on everything and anything. Now, to your point, Bala, which maybe this is my own experience on this. I had like similar feelings, which you just described now. Oh, like how come these guys, all over the place, they are doing these fantastic things? Like as you said, like you have the self doubt. Am I doing something wrong? Am I, not following up properly? But then after a while, I figured out two things which helped me a lot. And of course, yours is the best, to go about the important stuff, go deep. Now, the other thing which I started to see is there is a lot of hype, especially if people who hangs around, the socials, LinkedIn, more X, and you see these, there's someone who it's not my term, but someone who calls them the bros, like these guys
Yeah.
who, like the day something comes up after 6 hours, they recorded a full YouTube video showing
Yes.
the people how. So of course, like and I think this is part of the experiments and experience in the same time, experimenting and experiencing, this. So and you figure out, okay, I know why these guys, they are doing this, they're just looking for visibility. And I'm not looking for visibility, because going back to your deep thing, I want to go do what is important for me. I don't need visibility. The second thing, with time, you start to learn, okay, how to filter these things out. Okay, now when we use the new models used to come, everyone was used to get excited. But now, okay, the first thing personally I do, I go read the release notes. Okay, what they are saying, like what they
Yeah.
have
Mm-hmm.
improved. Hmm, does this help me in my day-to-day thing?
Yeah.
uh I'm not a coder, so if I see, like, for example, I'm just giving it, oh, like for example, OpenAI Codex is now better than Cloud Opus
Cool. Mm-hmm.
in coding. I'm just using
Yeah.
an example. For me, I don't code, so I don't have to have the feeling of fear of missing out, right? But if,
True.
for example, let's say I work on preparing marketing materials and they tell me, hey, like the new cloud model is, or Gemini model is much better in this, okay, let me go and check it out. So I start to mentally, train myself to filter these things out. So I don't have this feeling of burnout, as you mentioned, feeling like you start to, hit yourself. Oh, I'm not following enough. So I get like this, and again, it's all turns to the point you just mentioned, which I think it's very, very important, is going deep and search for what is meaningful and bigger problem, rather than just going after the, I would call them the doom and gloom of what people shows us here and there, which I think it's okay, because maybe I was very young, but maybe when the internet came out, things were like this at that time,
Yes.
maybe. Yeah, but of course not at that large scale. There was no social media and all
Media.
this.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think your point is very, very, I'm repeating it, go deep and solve bigger problems. I think, this is the best takeaway, at least for
Yeah.
me, one of the best of the takeaways today. Now, as we are coming to the end, and, I want to close with this topic. Part of the, any organization, an engineering organization, is of course not different. It's all about not only building teams and building systems, but also to establish culture, right? Now, and I know you have your own view about building systems and culture that adapt instead of age. Now, how does an aging engineering organization looks in practice, in your opinion?
Yes. I think this is where, like, for any system or a team that has been there for a while, or like legacy, we call it, right? What we don't have is the learnings are not updated because things are maybe outdated. Like now with AI and stuff, you get the learnings faster. Like you can get those things exposed faster. So that's a great tool to use it for, right? Hey, find out what kind of debt you have. find out what kind of anti patterns you have, which you have always lived with but never had a chance to go visit, because yes, it's important but it's not urgent, so it's going to be in the back burner. So now they
Right.
can come to the front burner. So use AI for those kind of taking away debt and stuff. And you mentioned about culture, right? That has always been very, very important part, especially now with AI. Your competition can build what you have overnight.
True.
Imagine you're building a great feature, right? Really phenomenal, wonderful insight. It goes out to the market. Everybody gets, wow, this is great. And then day after tomorrow, your competition builds the same thing. Because all it takes is one day now with all the tools to build something like that.
True.
What your competition cannot take away or build is the culture, right? What can your team do? That's where leaders and gonna be more, the leaders who are winners are the people who are not just looking at work, but who are looking at the people who can do the work and building an environment for those people to thrive. Like your competition cannot take away that culture of your team going after the next one, going deeper. There is a famous Peter Drucker thing of culture eats strategy for breakfast.
True.
So culture is gonna be the critical thing. That's the one AI cannot come and replicate or synthetically create. Everything else could be duplicated like tomorrow morning. So keep that in mind as a leader and think about what is your team going through. Like building the psychological safety in the world of AI is more important. Building the trust, not only in the AI and systems and data, but also within the team. Like build your team, like get people who are problem solvers.
This is very true. And, this is what I'm discussing with a lot of people today because, especially when it comes to the world of startups and even like, established companies, as you said, like you can copy a feature in no time today. And we talk about, of course, we can discuss and we can argue about what is the mode today. Is it,
Yeah.
the data but, one of the mode, which for sure it's one of the most important modes, it's the people, and people means culture, and people means, the team and how you deal with the team. And if you have a fantastic team, I believe, and if you have established a fantastic culture, like you can go after any competitor because, like as you said, copying features. Actually, it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't easy. It was difficult, but I mean, it used to take time. But now this is get
Yeah.
accelerated. But you can't copy a team spirit. I would say, hundred
Yes.
percent. You know.
Yes.
So I would agree on this, Bala. Bala, I really enjoyed the discussion today. Final question, like if people want to get in touch, do you have a website, any lead
Yeah.
where people can know more about you?
Yeah, totally. Definitely. They can find me on LinkedIn or my website, balamuthaya.com. So I have contact there and reach out to me on email. Those details are there. Always happy to have conversations because the more we need to do now is be curious and understand where everybody is. Like that's the thing that it is going to be hard to get. The real value is in talking to people and understanding where they are and what they are trying to do. So always open to those conversations.
Absolutely. Bala, I really thank you very much for this discussion today. The link would be, or the links would be in the show notes for people who are listening on their favorite podcasting app. They will find it there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find it on in the description. And again, thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed the discussion because I think this is important to understand how engineering leadership and leadership in general in the age of AI should be practiced, I would say. uh, and again, I'm highlighting my takeaway, my personal takeaway from today is about going deep and solve bigger problem. um, it's like my favorite takeaway from the whole discussion today because I think this is what it matters after all. And of course the culture and the team and being able to leverage the AI not just as productivity tool but more as a framework to shape our leadership style. So 100% on that also, Bala. um, and this is how I end my episodes. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast, by luck, thank you for passing by. And please give me a small favor. Share it with your friends and colleagues. We're trying to do more awareness. We're trying to share knowledge with as much people as possible. And if you are of the people who keeps coming again and again, the loyal fans, thank you very much. And I can't thank you enough because since last year, 2025, we started to see that the podcast never ever passed a week without being in one of these countries' Apple Top 200 podcast charts in the top list. This is cannot happen by itself. I don't push people to listen to the podcast. So this is all because you are letting other people know about the podcast. So thank you very, very much. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.